My husband thinks I hate his family after I told his father that he couldn't hump the floor in my house, right in front of me, and then have him claim it was for his wife, and that he was just messing around, because it made me uncomfortable. Crazy title, and I wish it weren't true, but here we are. Unfortunately, I'm asking because I'm possibly in a state of being gaslit, or I actually can't take a joke and I can't see it. My father-in-law, late 50s, is known for being very playful, goofy, some would even say. Well, my mother-in-law, late 50s, and 3 sibling in-laws, 20M and 27M, 28F, married couple, came to stay with my husband and I, 28F and 30M, at our home and to see our new baby, 7 months. Well, the baby was put to bed and we were all in the living room area hanging out, doing stretches, just casually talking, when my father-in-law decided it would be funny to start humping the ground out of nowhere. And unfortunately it was directly in front of me, not my mother-in-law. Mill and I looked at each other in shock while his children all laughed and chuckled. Phil made it clear that the gesture was meant for his wife despite it being directly in front of me, with eye contact, so we dropped it. The night passed, they left town, and after a few days of not being able to shake the image in my head, I decided to talk with my husband about how uncomfortable it made me along with other jokes he makes about us all being married and etc. There's been this big divide now on how I'm always ruining the fun, how it was just a joke and not an intimate gesture, and how I'll always find a problem when my husband's family is in town. His family thinks this, however, when I speak with my mom, sister, cousins, and anyone on my side of the world, they see his jokes and gesture as totally inappropriate. My Phil tried to make the point that I've done TikTok dances in his home with the other sibling-in-laws and my husband, and he's never felt uncomfortable because he knows they're harmless and that it's not fair for me to judge him about this versus knowing his intent, which was to just make a joke. My point is, even though I'm not on TikTok and I don't post videos, everything I've done is postable, him slow stroking the ground is not. My husband got mad at me for not seeing it as a joke, and so did the other married siblings who were in the room that were raised by Phil. So am I a jerk for saying that my Phil humping the floor in my home/presence made me uncomfortable and drawing that boundary? I genuinely would appreciate feedback because I plan to have another conversation soon and I want to know that I'm coming into the conversation grounded in reality. Commenter: can your husband explain the joke to you and his mother? Can father-in-law? 'Cause I don't get it either. Just straight up gross. OP responds: this is a good point and I'm wondering if I should actually ask to see what the response is. Commenter 2: not a jerk. Your in-laws are weird AF for enabling this behavior. Your husband is weird for getting upset you didn't get the joke. WTF. His father made you uncomfortable. I'd be sick to my stomach if I saw my him do that. And your husband's reaction is to get upset with you instead of address it with his dad? Gross. All around gross. Update: all aboard for the Hot Mess Express. Firstly, thank you to all of the responses. I genuinely appreciate the kind, blunt, informative, funny, and not so nice comments because truly I was looking for all perspectives. It felt reassuring to see that majority, not all, of you felt like it was, in fact, inappropriate/gross/weird/odd/sick, and especially having folks that aren't like me, religious, jokesters, etc., still see the behavior as not the best. This is a 24-hour update. So the reason I followed up with my Phil/Mill wasn't because my Phil never apologized, he did. Reluctantly, but he did. I followed up with them because of one particular event that happened on the first phone call when my husband, yes although mad at me, told them that I was uncomfortable. My Phil's immediate response to my husband and I saying I was uncomfortable was that he, FIL, was uncomfortable with the fact that I was uncomfortable and that this all made him feel bad because it's not fair that I was uncomfortable. He apologized and truly it could have stopped right there because truly he's entitled to his feelings. But it didn't stop there. It got back to me that he was telling the other in-laws, siblings, how I couldn't have fun, I ruin the fun when they're around, he's uncomfortable because I'm looking at him like that and that it hurts because I don't know him better, etc. 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 Stuff came up about the TikTok dances and how there was room for interpretation regarding them being inappropriate, etc. Let me clear one thing up: imagine dances like Millie Rock, Shoot, Ducky, 2000s hip-hop. Imagine church dances that you see in African American culture, since we're religious, like shouting, praising. That. There was no twerking, jiving, or gyrating. There were maybe 6, max 8, videos and half of them were religious-oriented. Nothing seductive, fully clothed, very appropriate. And actually there hasn't been a video of me dancing nor have I danced there in maybe the last 2 to 3 years. So let's just place that there. Okay. Him feeling upset wasn't a problem, it was the taking to the in-laws and word getting back to me and me being questioned about why I can't just enjoy the moments and the jokes. It was why can't you be happy around them? I explained that our beliefs and values don't align to my brother-in-law, BIL, which is who came to me. But for me, this meant one thing clearly: I can't say, I'm uncomfortable, and that simply be received. All of the side talk, Phil confirmed, showed me one thing. There clearly was tension and of things being spoken, so my husband suggested I speak with my in-laws versus immediately separating myself. Maybe there was a misunderstanding, let's just talk it out and see. How did that conversation go? As you would expect, terrible. My in-laws were incredibly irate and yelled majority of the time. The part that hurt them the most was me talking to my mother, who's also a part of the church community. Talking to her meant that I, in their words, exposed him, and now she sees Phil in a different light. Their words. One part of the conversation sounded like this. Phil, how would you feel if I told folks you prostitute? Me, I would feel like that's a lie. Phil, exactly. That's how I feel. Me, except I didn't lie about anything. I just told my mom the facts and how it made me feel. Mil, well, Op, doesn't feel like she lied, so she doesn't understand. Me, where was the lie? I only told the facts. Phil, but Op, you made me look bad. Mil, yeah, Op, you've now shown him in a different light, and that doesn't show his character. He has a good heart. A lot of our conversation sounded like that. I'm also realizing a lot of the conversation was rooted in bullying, and that's the nice way of me saying it. Some of the comments sounded like, we can joke with all our married friends and married children about intercourse conversation, but we see we can't do that with you, MIL. We just can't make any jokes around you, so I guess we probably need to be careful with how we talk. I don't know how I'll act around you now, MIL. What you did was bad and you shouldn't have told your family, Phil. To this point, all they know is that I talked to my mom. And what's interesting about this is that when I asked who should I have spoken to about my discomfort, the response was, well, we're not saying who you can talk to, but you shouldn't have told anybody about this, you could have come talk to Mil. I told them I wasn't safe to talk to Mil because of what I'm seeing in real time with the conversation we were having. Reddit readers, when I say it was a bunch of yelling and insulting, saying don't be dumb, what you did is bad, etc., I'm not kidding. I told them, in the future, I hope the in-laws, their children's spouses, can come to them when something makes them uncomfortable and it be received. They said, aren't you being received now? And I said, no. I'm being met with screaming, insults, threats of being cut off. Phil said this, and that this is emotionally unsafe. I said that even with expressing myself, Phil is only getting angrier. He agreed. He explained that he's the adult and that I should listen, and that's my problem. I shouldn't have talked to anyone, it made him look bad. He said that doesn't want to talk to me and will move differently with me. He no longer wants to come over to our home, thank the heavens. He yelled these things, and when I asked him to stop yelling, he said no, I'm mad. When I asked could he stop insulting, he said no, maybe we don't need to talk. I said you're right, we don't if we can't respect each other. He said up, you need to respect me. I said grab control, he said you grab control. We ended the call with him repeating leave me alone and crying very hard while yelling. I'm not kidding. Now let me say this. I never raised my voice, insulted, or overtalked anyone because I've seen this with my other sister-in-law, married into the family like me. It's easy to feel provoked and get into a screaming match, but when you're cool as a cucumber emotionally, that sends them over the edge. And that's what happened. And fortunately I documented the conversation for proof. How did it end? Phil kept repeating up, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone, and I told him he's an autonomous being and that he's able to hang up the phone anytime he wants, so after saying leave me alone at least 4 to 5 times, he hung up. They called my husband, who was not present for this conversation, and didn't want to be, and simply told him the conversation was rough. Or at least that's what he told me, and I could tell the conversation lasted less than 10 minutes. My husband was overwhelmed with everything, and honestly I think some of you were spot on. He named the joke, intimate gesture, humping the ground, as inappropriate with me privately, but when he heard himself, after I reconfirmed, he said, no you, Op, said it was inappropriate. He's done this a few times, so I really do believe he sees that it wasn't appropriate. I just think he's struggling to say it because that goes against all that he's been taught and whatever else happened in that home. Lastly, I'll say this. A few things that happened on the phone call with the in-laws that felt off were these. Phil named all the children-in-laws and stated that they all make these jokes, and he said, why is it that even though I make them the most, you pick me out of them and you feel uncomfortable? I told him I feel uncomfy when everybody does it and have spoken out about it, but the humping took it too far, and now I'm bringing it to the forefront because there is a power dynamic. He's a father, an elder, deacon, leader, grandfather, etc., not a peer. They question why I'm trying to make Phil look bad. And I ask why was the joke not what made him look bad? Why is it that me talking to my mother the part that makes them upset and feel as though he looks bad? I asked if their daughter dealt with this with her Phil, how would they feel? Would they want her to feel comfortable talking to them? No answer. Only, she can talk to her own Mil. They've said I've made them uncomfortable before in the past for things like arguing with my husband in their home in their presence, and they talked to us about it at the time, years ago. I said yes and y'all told us it made you uncomfy and we resolved. Why am I not able to do the same? They responded because you're blowing this up. I asked how? They said, because you talked to your mom. They only found that out on the phone call even though they came in with yelling and told their children, my in-laws. This is long so I'll stop here. There won't be a TLDR, because how? SMH. Nonetheless, ask all the questions, and help me make sense of something that really doesn't make sense. I will be and am being as honest as I possibly can and I recognize that this is a hot mess. But unfortunately I can't make this stuff up. I'll respond to comments. Tell me your thoughts. Commenter, okay so you can't tell your mom, but he can tell his whole family to ridicule you. This is so unhealthy, and yes, he looks incredibly unstable. Shifting all the blame on you, and playing the victim after, I would definitely go NC and expect my husband to defend me or I would serve him with divorce papers. I found out that my brother-in-law is the reason why my husband left me because he cannot get over that I rejected him. Now he can't show his face because everybody knows his game. I met my brother-in-law 38 at uni. He asked me out in our first year and I refused. He called me the C word and that I am shallow. My best friend told me that it was harmless comments from a drunken guy who got rejected. I never thought myself shallow. It was his demeanor and awkwardness that was off-putting to me. Anyway, he proved my friend right. And other than these comments I have never felt uncomfortable during my uni years because he never bothered me again. Not even looked my way. The next time I met him was when my baby sister 28 introduced him as her boyfriend. I didn't even recognize him at first because it was like 9 to 10 years since that day he talked to me. He was visibly annoyed that I didn't recognize him and called me a liar. The family was skeptical at first about him but he seemed to treat my sister right and she seemed happy. He is very rich, taking her all over the world and he seemed kind with his too. They got married after a year of dating. They have 3 children. I met my now ex 5 years ago and the only odd comment from my brother-in-law was that I was still as shallow and superficial as I was in uni. At the time, I took it as a joke but in hindsight, when I found out the truth and started thinking back looking for red flags, this was probably a big one. He never showed any signs that he disliked my husband and he was always decent enough his indifference to have a close friendship with my husband and I didn't seem odd because he was always a recluse. A year ago, my husband came home and accused me of cheating and he had evidence. The guy contacted him and he had nudes etc. of me on his phone. The guy told my husband that he didn't know at first that I was married but as soon as he found out he contacted my now ex. He even apologized to my husband. I have never met this guy in my life. Nothing I said or did made my husband believe me. He left me and our divorce is pending. Then yesterday that guy contacted me. He apologized for what he did and told me that he is friends with my brother-in-law. He sent me conversations, endless conversations my brother-in-law had about me for years. He has never forgotten that I in his words didn't even give him a chance and only judged him by his looks. He called me C in that chat. Both groups chat with his friends but mostly with this guy. They planned this attack and my brother-in-law somehow got access to my photos. The reason this guy contacted me now is that he felt guilty because even when my marriage is over my brother-in-law still was angry and hateful especially when he heard that I was on a date last weekend. So the friend felt that he didn't help his friend but ruined innocent people's lives. Not sure what to do. My brother-in-law has actually been happier and more sociable than usual since my divorce and now I know why although at first I thought he felt sorry and wanted to support me. His jokes about me ending up an old maid with cats as companions don't sound like jokes anymore. He meant them. I don't want to ruin my sister's life. She's very happy with her husband. I'm not sure either if I can with her husband. I'm not sure if I should tell my ex or not. I am very heartbroken that he didn't believe me. Love him very much. He is the love of my life, but I'm not sure if I can forgive him for not believing me. But he is a victim in this too. So maybe he needs to know for closure. I am so terribly sad and hurt. I'm sorry this post got very long. Update. I don't know where to start. I have been in constant pain and stress about everything that happened but my brother-in-law is now exposed to everyone about what he did to me. For those of you who think he is in love with me, he isn't. He very much hates my guts and has done since the day I rejected him. Hate is also a driving force and not only love. I was in constant fear that my brother-in-law will be hurting my sister because of me and I am not certain if he will. But that was the only reason I have been apathetic. I wasn't sure what the right step was with people like him. He has hidden his hatred so well for so long so what more is he capable of? I didn't want my sister and her children to be the collateral damage. That's why I have been careful. I am sorry to disappoint you by not being the strong bad bitch. I have other priorities. My sister and I finally talked. I love her and her children very much. She seemed just very hurt and questioning her entire marriage and who can blame her? I tried the baby steps approach. I wanted her to know I was there for her and I was honest with her about my worries about her and her children with a man like him. It worked for a while and I was hopeful but something changed and it probably had to do with her husband giving her an ultimatum. Divorce or cut your family off. She chose her marriage. It broke my parents and me but I don't think we can do anything about it. It is her own choice even if we believe it is coerced. But maybe there's this little chance that she knows him better than we do. There's little hope that he is a better person for his family. I am clinging to that hope. She wrote us telling us to forget she and her children existed and that they would take legal action if we ever tried to contact them. Brother-in-law deleted all his social media accounts and his friends apparently all want nothing to do with him. I have heard he is planning on leaving the city because everyone knows what he did now and he is having a hard time with it. He barely leaves the house and he has been shamed, even at work.
My ex-husband and I are moving on with the divorce. I don't blame him for believing the rumors, but at the same time, I wish he knew me better like I thought he did, that I would never do such a thing and cheat on him. I am so sorry that he moved back for me and probably was hoping we could give it another chance, but I can't. He has apologized so many times and said so many times that he never truly believed the rumors, but I have started to think that our marriage wasn't strong enough to overcome a rumor. It is nobody's fault, but I thought our love was stronger than it actually was. I think we both thought that. I started dating a new guy a few weeks before all this started, after over a year of not even being able to leave bed. He has seen all of this unfolding and he's been very patient and supportive. I think I have a real shot at happiness now. At least he knows everything and is well prepared in case my brother-in-law isn't done with me yet. I went to therapy to understand why I was attracted to men who treated me like garbage, but it made me realize that I was the trash in my previous relationship, and it led to me throwing myself out of what could have been a happy marriage. I finally broke down and decided to go to therapy despite my ex, we'll get more into him later, heavily suggesting it over the course of my relationship. I wanted to know why I was attracted to men that mistreated me so much, but she dragged me down to earth with my most recent ex. She basically laid out what I did wrong, asked why I did what I did, and described my actions as abusive and how I should approach the same situation going forward. I met my ex through a friend. He was a couple of years older than me and he graduated in the early stages of our relationship. He was so caring, coming to stay with me in the library after work just to be with me, bringing me takeout during stressful study periods, and just being there. In retrospect, I treated him like garbage. After being with so many bad exes, we have a cheater, some guys who lied about wanting a relationship with me just to get smashing, etc. I kind of compartmentalized my feelings and would often box out the offending party. With the first couple of arguments, I would box out my ex for a couple of days to cool off, and he'd text a couple of times of me boxing him out to ask when I'd be ready to talk, and we would, and things would be fine. Editor's note: boxing out is a basketball term. It essentially means she shut him out, gave him the cold shoulder. I guess because he was so great, I unconsciously held him to a much higher standard. We were supposed to watch a movie together after my exam period, but he went with his friends instead. He offered to go again with me and wouldn't spoil it or give his opinions, so it would be like we were watching it the first time, and I boxed him out for 5 days. He would do his texting apologizing and I would lash out at him. I never took any accountability for my actions. It seemed like even the smallest thing that I perceived was wrong resulted in me boxing him out. It all came to a head when he said that my boxing him out was stressing him out and that if I was so unhappy, I was free to leave. He wasn't going to force me to change. I promised to change. For a time, things did change. I went on an internship, so the stress of studying and tests were gone, and we had the best year of our relationship. We communicated at even the smallest things, and he got even more romantic with me. Even the most trivial events, like simple grocery shopping, ended up being a great date, and I was truly happy. We'd even discussed getting married when my career was stable, and he got me a silver ring that was engraved with our initials and my graduation date for my left ring finger. He called it a placeholder for the real thing when the time was right. Then I went back to school. The last year of school was so bad. My lab partners were just mean or lazy. The instructors were brutal and I struggled with the material. My ex tried to help, but, as my therapist showed me, that I lash out more when stressed. He came over and did the dishes but forgot to wash the pans. I screamed at him and boxed him out for a week. I noticed a change because he only texted once during the boxing out period. In hindsight, I realized that he was preparing to leave. After the week was up, he brought up our previous discussion about me boxing him out. I was stressed and he didn't seem to care. My therapist said that he was likely beyond pissed, so I gave him lip service. At this point during our session, my therapist was blunt and told me, "You were very lucky he didn't leave you then and there." The straw that broke his back was my birthday. He'd been skimping and saving for the last 6 months or so, like we'd go to cheaper restaurants, and he dialed back his nights out with his friends, like swapping bar nights to take out and video games, but I didn't think he'd skimp on my birthday. He took me to a cheaper place, instead of our usual steakhouse visit, and his gift was bath bombs and a basket of my favorite snacks and chocolates. I was pissed and snapped at him that he could be frugal with himself or his friends, but I thought I was more important. Time flew by. I'd boxed him out for 2 weeks. He did not text once. When I called to ask him to come over and talk, all he said was, "I made the mistake of trying to change you. You should be with someone who will take you as you are." I'm done, and I fired back with, "Well, I won't wait for you to come back." Lo and behold, he, and all his friends and family, blocked me the minute the call ended. Luckily, the friend that introduced us did not block me, so we could stay friends. When I finished that part of the story, my therapist did not hold back. She told me that I need to work on my self-importance, be more reflective on my actions and how they impact other people, how to manage my disappointment better and communicate with him better, like ask why he was being so frugal. I've done that, and I came to a horrible realization that I was awful to him. My therapist made me write all the things he did for me in a list of how he wronged me and got boxed out,
along with the length of boxing out. The wrong part of the list was longer than the good part, but the good part seemed to outweigh the bad. Then my therapist asked if I had ever considered that I was getting mad about the small things and using my ex as a whipping boy for my disappointment and frustration. At first I thought she didn't understand, and as I think more, it sinks in and I feel sick. I guess my ex got his revenge. I met with a friend that introduced us, we're quite close, and I cried and vented about what I told my therapist, and asked her if I appeared to be controlling and abusive. She was silent for a minute and said yes. He told us everything and the others all dislike you for what you did. She was a little angry too and said, well, you know why he was being frugal? It was his ex showing a brand new iPhone, AirPod Pros and a few video games with the caption was saving up for a ring, but guess I don't need that anymore. Dodged a bullet and got an iPhone out of the deal. It really did hurt. If I listened to him and sought out therapy sooner, maybe I would be engaged to that wonderful man. Apparently he was planning to do it at the convocation. I just don't know what to do now. I threw this all away. I asked my friend not to inform me of his life anymore. It just hurts to think that another girl will get to experience the happiness he brought me. I pissed away the lottery winnings because I didn't know how to control my temper. I deserve this. Edit. I want to thank everyone who commented and provided insight. Honestly, as I typed my responses, I realized how much my friend did for me. I should thank her for not leaving me at this trying time. I suspect that my ex deliberately did not give her the instructions to cut me out nor force her to choose between us. I don't have a lot of friends. Well, she's like my only friend left, and he probably didn't want me to be alone. I guess that was his one last act of kindness. I wish I could go back in time and cherish that man. Sadly, he's gone. Commenter 1. What was going through your head for that 2 weeks? Like, were you just pissed the entire time? Or missing him? Forgot about him? Oop. Pissed mostly. Kind of like a cocktail of him giving me a bad birthday gift, him not reaching out to try and fix things, school not going well and he's not there to support me, etc. Just things haven't been going well and this fight gave me an easy villain to channel my anger to. Commenter 2. You only talk about what he did for you. When you say you threw this all away, what exactly did he miss out on? I'm saying this in an effort to help you frame how you recall the relationship and think about what you bring to the table as a partner in the future other than being the recipient of gifts and gestures. Oop. We really haven't gotten to that session yet. So far we focused on how my actions impacted him and how I was lucky he was so patient, and what I can do to avoid doing this in the future. Update. Since there was so much support, I guess I owe you all an update. I reached out to my friend to grab dinner and chat so I could thank her for her support. We had a nice chat and she said what you guys said, she was happy that I was getting help. I read a lot of your responses and quite a few of you emphasized with my ex. Honestly, I never really thought about what he went through during my boxing out. I just knew it triggered his anxiety and he didn't like it. So I did a stupid thing and decided to ask her. First, I asked how he was doing. She asked if I really wanted to know. I did. You all said that being boxed out for periods of time caused trauma. I just wanted to see if he was okay. She just showed me a group photo of them. I couldn't recognize him at all. He lost so much weight and looked fit. We were overweight while dating, but he shed his cheek fat and more tight-fitting clothes. Apparently, during the last box out, the guys got him a gym membership and he really dove in after leaving me and has been religiously going since. I decided to ask about what I did to him. I told my friend that my therapist wants me to understand how my actions, in this case, my boxing out, affected him. What I heard made me feel even worse. Apparently, he started getting more apologetic over the smallest things. One example she gave was that he brought less food to a potluck than the others and started apologizing over and over. Then he started binge drinking sporadically. He told his friends that it was to cope with work stress, but I really know, and they all know now, that we had been fighting. One night of binge drinking, one of the other guys was commenting how he had a minor squabble with his girlfriend over not liking the notebook, and that set my ex off. He had a full-on mental breakdown and basically spilled out everything I had done to him at this point. That's when they turned on me. When I boxed him out, they would let him text me once and basically try to distract him while taking his phone away until he stopped trying to panic apologize. Then they started to tell him that he was being abused and to leave me. That was before the second time he asked me to change. They wanted him to leave me then, but he insisted that I would change. Then the final time he agreed with them and gave them explicit instructions to block my number and delete my contact info when he gave the signal. However, he told my friend that she was free to do whatever she wanted. He said he wasn't going to kill a friendship over his problems. Then he left and then the wall of silence came up. I wish I'd never asked. I wish I thought about what he was going through. I had my head so far up my butt that I thought I was right and self-absorbed in my world where he was wrong and I was right and he deserved that punishment. Anyways, I'm signing off now. I won't be using this account again. Thank you for all of your support in making me see the hard things. I'll continue with my therapy and hopefully find someone who treats me as well as my ex did.
I left my girlfriend after she went out with one of her guy friends and ended up having unconsensual intimacy with him, and I'm sorry that happened to you, but you ended our relationship the second you chose to go into his room alone. My girlfriend, explicitly because I was spending my weekend with family who had flown in from out of state/country, decided to go out. She spent however much of the day at the mall with some guy she said she just wanted to be friends with. He took her back to his place where there was apparently a party. She turned off her location. I noticed when I went to send her a goodnight message and asked her if everything was okay and if she was safe. She affectionately said she was. I asked her if her home Wi-Fi was down again. She told me she had turned it off so her parents wouldn't know where she was. I asked her where she was and she never answered me. From the bits she's told me, the music was loud. He told her he wanted to show her his room because of how hilariously tiny it was. She went up with him, and he started going after her sexually. She said it was late and her parents were worried about her and she wanted to go home, but from what I understand he pressured her into saying yes. That's cohesion and unconsensual. I got a message that morning telling me she had cheated but her friends told her it was just unconsensual. I messaged her, drew her hugging geese, told her I wanted to make sure she was okay and call. I offered to drive over. She told me she was with her good friend, different guy obviously, and spending the day with him. I kept messaging, worried about her, to no response, until I stopped to not pressure her. I barely got through work that day, and got myself drunk, first time properly sloshed, that night to stop worrying when trying to be with family I only had a day with between months or years. She called me when I was drunk and asked me to come over, offered to Uber me over, told me she needed me. I told her I was drunk and couldn't be there. I had also promised my family members not to talk to her if they let me at the hard whiskey. She called me and I was apparently asking too many questions and told me to just spend the next day with family. The next day while I was with family, she begged me to come over. By that point I was already talking to family, including my sister, who was abused, including traumatized by her ex, trying to understand. They all told me she breached my trust. In all fairness, they're biased because they feel she's abusive. In a previous post, all responses told me I was being abused, if they believed the story at all. I broke up with her then, but she told me she needed me to sit next to her that night or she wouldn't be able to finish her take-home midterm. She aced it while I worked right next to her. We talked and cuddled and I thought things would improve, and some aspects definitely did. My sister told me breaking up with her then comforting her would just lead me back into the cycle and hurt her too. And I thought through all the stories I had hidden from them and my friends of how she did me wrong, and I yelled at them that they were wrong, and I just slid down onto the ground, and wrote this message. You did not deserve to have that happen to you. What he did was awful and it is never your fault. But, name, you went up to his room alone with him after you two spent however much of the day together, you made fun of me for how oblivious I was at the start, but even I would have caught that. You didn't tell him about me because you didn't want to ruin his opinion by being too complicated. You can say my boyfriend is worried about me without explaining our entire relationship. You could make it clear you were taken, but you didn't when you have actively complained to me about how men often only befriend women for smashing. And again, none of that excuses it and I am so sorry that happened to you. But that doesn't change that you cheated on me, not physically but emotionally. My family doesn't know so many of the other cheating adjacent things either. And so many friends are telling me the exact same thing. When you called me I melted at your voice and forgot it all. But our relationship died when you walked into that room. It should have died when you refused full exclusivity, and it should have died when you kissed that guy on our break. If I go over there now I will be betraying my sister, and other relatives, when I promised so many times I wouldn't leave her again. And besides, there's nothing I as your ex can possibly do to genuinely support you right now, especially with how shattered my trust is. I'm sorry I made a promise to you I couldn't keep. You were right. Your trauma is valid, and if you need to, please talk to a professional at the hotline. Thank you for the lessons, the fun, your amazing cooking, and the geese, and Poodle X relationship code word meaning 100% sincerely, wish you the very best. Goodbye. I don't think we should stay in contact, even though it burns me inside to say this. I'll send you your stuff, including replacement Tupperware, and I'll figure out with someone to grab my stuff too. Commenter. Jesus Christ, that was too much. I dumped her in my mind when you said she was hanging out with some other guy and turned her location off. Update. I thought that was a lot when it happened, but it went insane afterwards. So, I ended up spending the day with family, and that night, I went to my cousin's grandmother's 79th birthday. She and her husband were basically surrogate grandparents to me. That section of the family was always close, so they were almost grandparents to me. Her husband threw this massive party, seemingly out of nowhere. That was the night I wrote the original post. 2 days later, his heart stopped. I was already a mess, between trying to process what happened with my ex, wanting answers and closure, and also dealing with a flat tire. Then he was in the hospital with guaranteed brain damage, and then he was dead. I basically collapsed the first week after the post, skipping all my university classes, and only going to work. I attended his vigil every night after he was taken off life support at the end of the week. He was brain dead, but my family wanted to keep him alive until relatives from out of town could get back. During this time, my ex got around my block, messaging me on Steam, which I forgot to block her on. She said she just wanted to tell me the full story, and recounted her story of it in extreme detail. She explicitly avoided telling me any information about the affair, lest I discover who it was. However, in telling me that, I was able to piece together who it was, a guy she had been in the talking phase with when we were talking too, who told her he had no interest in being friends when she chose me. Months before this incident, she had called a break, went on a date and kissed him. I should have left her then, but through guilt and promises, and what I later learned was a trauma bond built through abuse, I took her back. She swore to block him and yada yada. But, I wanted answers, and I was feeling so completely dead trying to process everything, I let her convince me to talk in person under the guise of closure. She cried, and begged, and promised and pleaded. I sat there, like a rock, for hours, tried walking out several times, but she withheld information, while dripping it to me just quickly enough to make it feel like progress. Over the next week, I uncovered the story. She had been seeing him in secret for the month before. She claimed it was all platonic. She put incredibly effort into seeing him. She talked bad about me too. But what really gets me is that she took the train into my city, where he lived too, greeted him at the station, never wanted me to pick her up from her city anymore, 80 miles away, then shamed me for never picking her up, and painting herself as sacrificing for me by taking the train, when she was meeting her affair at the station. I worked when the train pulled in. It was her spring break, so she was back in town for a week. She love-bombed me for that whole time, presented herself as a safe harbor in the emotional storm she caused. I was 3 weeks behind on my classwork by then, and I was only able to be productive around her, so I stayed there to stay afloat, falling into her hoover. But, then I saw her promises be broken, I saw the mask begin to slip, and I started collecting my stuff so she could not keep it hostage. I began mentally preparing to leave. Then the emotional abuse started again, the devaluation, the gaslighting, but I tried a few times to present myself, only to be emotionally attacked for a week. Then she realized I was leaving, and it flipped into gaslighting, claims of loyalty and love. I remember sending this when she claimed I was presuming to know her mind by saying she didn't love me nor was loyal to me. I'm not a mind reader, but, if your brand of loyalty involves betrayal and cheating repeatedly, I don't want that loyalty. I ended up aggregating every letter I never sent her into a 43-page document. I read through it all, and I did what she never could. I listened to my younger self, I felt his pain, I became the person he had needed for 7 months, someone who could truly listen. I supported him, I proved to myself that I could love myself, and that I was enough. That was what gave me closure, myself, not her. Closure never comes from another person, only from you. Then I cut contact, more thoroughly that time. NC will be a month in 3 days. She tried contacting me by using my phone number at CVS to send me a receipt, adding me on chess.com, and reacting to my Duolingo streak, but I just kept going. It was hard at first, but I got myself into therapy, where I started at medium depression, but have been cleared completely, started attending Codependence Anonymous meetings, reconnected with friends and family better than I ever had before in my life. I also realized that I was likely dealing with someone with comorbid BPD and NPD, especially since she would explicitly revoke her empathy and love at times, among many other things you can read by going through my post and comment history. But, she's not important anymore. What matters is that I took all that energy and love I had given her and put it into myself, and I'm now doing better than I ever have been. I'm on top of myself, and I'm busy, but I'm loving it. I went from a 78 on my math exam at the beginning of NC, to a 106.5 a few days ago. I barely think of my ex anymore, and while I'm not looking for romance, someone approached me the other day, and I had an amazing time with her then, so I'm open to see where things go. Apart from that, my sister's wedding is in 2 weeks, I've been incredibly busy illustrating for that, drew for 8 hours today, my finals are at the same time, and I'm also pursuing a Microsoft contract, so life is amazing, but exhausting. I'm driving out to the desert with my friend tomorrow though, and he's going to introduce me to a bunch of motor and water sports, so I'm honestly really excited, plus I'm getting a ton of friends together on Sunday to meet up after a while. Life is really good. I just wanted to thank everyone who commented and me on the original post. So many of you helped me. Several people wanted an update then, so, here it is. TLDR, life is good when you love yourself instead of an abuser. Commenter. Not the fudgin' Duolingo streak?